Welcome to the Escape and Empower podcast. Escape from the corporate rat race to empowered franchise ownership. Are you ready to take control of your destiny, follow your dreams, and live life on your own terms? Join our hosts, Dave and Pete, for insights on how to break free from the corporate grind, ditch the 9-to-5, and step into empowered franchise ownership.
Hi, my name is Dave Greenberg, and I'm one of the co-hosts of the Escape and Power podcast. So what is that? We're going to share our stories, how we left the corporate world and became entrepreneurs, and how we help you do the same.
Hi, I'm Pete Gilfillan. I'm a proud corporate escapee. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm the best-selling author of the book Hire Yourself, and I'm a co-host of the Escape and Empower podcast. We're excited to share our journeys of how we escape the corporate world and how we can help others take control of their destiny to build wealth and live life on their own terms through becoming a business owner, or simply put, an entrepreneur. Good morning, Dave. Hey, we're going to have a great time today. And I thought what we would do in our podcast today is that both of us have invested in franchises. And so I thought we would do is talk about our first time, the first time we invested in a franchise, because that kicked it off for both of us. And so let's start with you. You get to tell your story. So tell me about the first time, the journey that you took to invest in your first franchise.
Thanks, Pete. Well, the first thing I got to say is my consultant was unbelievable, because his name was Pete Gilfillan. And I've known him for, since the late 80s, early 90s, something around there. It all blurs together. So I left the corporate space, successful exit, and was in Nashville. And I was facing ageism in the workplace and didn't want to go back in, exchange time for money, and thinking if I did that for another 5 years, I was going to be 56, and then thinking about doing something, and I'd even be older. So I called Pete, and Pete took me through the process as a franchise consultant did. And my journey was eye-opening. He knows Laurie, my wife, and he says, "You got to get Laurie on board, Dave, or you're not doing anything." I said, "Okay." So we had our consultation, and we went through all sorts of things, and he quickly figured out that, I wanted to be in the executive model kind of business. I wanted to work on it, and I wanted recurring revenue, and I wanted a few moving parts. And so we went through a few of them. And it was great because I think there were 3 to look at. It helped me compare and kind of contrast the two. And the most important part of the process was having Laurie, my wife, along the way, and especially 2 things. One, make sure she should participate in validation so she can hear it from the franchisee's mouths what's going on, because sometimes things get lost in translation, especially when I'm trying to talk to my wife. Second thing is make sure you are working a model. Now, franchise consultants can't make any earnings claims. You can't do anything. I, as a franchisee, had to build my own model from the data I picked up and from my validations with the other franchisees. And people ask me, what was the biggest fear? And I said, it wasn't my fear, because I'm the gas pedal. My wife's the brake on the relationship, and thank God she is. And there's a video out there of Laurie speaking about how she got past her fear. And frankly, it was working through the business model with me. And I believe in the business model because I'd spent hours putting it together and talking to franchisees. And then, I had to take Laurie through it. Okay, what's this? Okay, what's this? And I felt shit. I'm back in the corporate world, I'm getting drilled on my financials. But it was good because at the end, she's a smart lady. And she's like, okay, we've got one in college and a senior that's about to go into college. What do you do? And I said, well, should we do it? And she goes, yeah, I believe in this, Dave. I believe in you, but more importantly, I believe in the business model. And then she got to meet Cecil, the founder, who unfortunately has passed away, of Salons by JC. What a warm, wonderful individual. It's like, okay, I can work with this guy and this team, and I can work with this business model. My wife is on board. The fears were there because it was the first time I was going to make payroll out of my own bank account. And we did it.
And it was a lot of hard work though, right? I mean, it takes a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Because people said, what's the story about how you got into it? And Pete says this all the time. It's hard work, no matter whether you're owner operator or taking the executive model approach. It's hard work.
it takes hard work. And if you remember when I introduced you the franchise concepts, you thought I was a little crazy, right? We talked about franchising, but I presented these concepts. You'd never really heard of a salon suite concept and the other ones that I shared with you. And I said, just keep an open mind. Just keep an open mind and have one conversation with them. And you're going to start learning and you'll figure it out. And you did a great job of going through the process and more importantly, including Lori in the process, because that is so important that you can either, do it with them or, against them. And you did it with her.
It's interesting. I remember the three. Meineke was one. And it was, I was like all about it because I understood the business and I went up into Kentucky and visited with a multi-unit franchisee, did my validations one-on-one. And Brown was, I can't remember his name because it was long ago. And I was like, okay. And then we started doing the Salons by JC business model. And I was like, okay, what part of the labor pool do I really want to be associated with? And then I also looked at another kind of UPS postal type store. And the characteristics were clearly things that pointed me in the right direction, especially the labor pool. You can choose what part of the labor pool you want to work with. And it's not snobby or anything, but, do what you want to do. And I found, I'm a car guy. What am I doing in the beauty and wellness space? And I say today, well, hey, unfortunately, repeat, hair still grows, so you got to do something with it. But nails grow. You need facials. You need to get wax. The stylists and beauty and wellness professionals are just incredibly professional, creative, and wonderful people. And, if I look at their 6 locations, we have under our roofs, we have 274 entrepreneurs who are 99.5% of them are women just rocking their own business under our roofs. It's just so rewarding to do that business. So, there were a lot of things that I said, okay, I know nothing about this business, but I know how to hire a manager before I opened up. I know how to enjoy, I like recurring revenue. I love the simplicity of the model, and the business model is someone said to me, don't follow your passion. And I say that today too, but fall in love with the business model and the services you provide. And then, and that's what I did.
Yeah. And a lot of times falling in love is building it, right? It's about doing whatever you're doing. It's not necessarily about the widget. It's about what you can build with the widget. Yeah, I always tell people.
Yeah, I think, we both say the same, are you a sustainer or a builder? What gets you excited? And that was important. Pete asked me how important growth was to me. And that's why I did, I signed up for 3 and we ended up building 6 over time. And I think we did it. We did build 6 in 5 years. That was a crazy thing.
That's pretty aggressive. Yeah, absolutely.
But we survived.
And thrived.
Yes. The occupancy rates hold steady and true. And it's a simple, consistent business that, you can hold on to it as an annuity or you can build it up to take it to sale as an exit.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of my journey. And, if I talk about, the 5 years I took to build it, the 5 years I built a team. We have a general manager running all 6 locations now. She's just wonderful. And each location has a manager and a half because we do some things with a part-time employee to help everyone in the place. The simple things make a difference. Show up, smile, remember birthdays, remember anniversary dates of when they signed their lease, and Christmas party. You don't have to throw a party, but you need to feed the beauty and wellness professionals because their business is so crazy busy in the holidays. All they want is a good lunch. So, during December, buy lunch if you're in the salon suite business for the people that are working in your salons, and set the right environment. The password to my business is happy place, and the customers can use it, and all my salon owners use it because it sets the tone.
And I think the key thing is that you've set your life now. You don't ever have to go back to the corporate world. Right? You're in control of your life and you're making a difference in people's lives. And that's what it's all about, is the impact you make in the world. And you got to be very proud of what you've done.
Well, thank you, Pete, because once I got it done, I took about 8 weeks off at 56 years old, and I figured I found out retirement wasn't for me because I was in my wife's space, and what am I going to do at 56? So I called up Pete under restrictions from Laura. He said, call Pete, but no more money in businesses. Okay. How do you put yourself to work and limit your capital expenditures? And that's when Pete invited me to become a consultant with Franchise. And so that's why I'm here today. And thank you, Pete.
Yeah, that's a great journey.
So what about your journey, Pete?
So my journey starts with you and I were both at Ford, and I ultimately left Ford. It was just the right time. I love Ford. It's a great company. I grew up as a son of a Ford dealer. Grandfather was a Ford dealer. Grew up in Ford family. My blood was blue, and I got the fortunate opportunity to work for Ford and spend a lot of time there, several years, a little under 20 years. And it just got to the point where it wasn't making me happy anymore. So I decided to leave Ford, and I joined a company called Terex. And Terex is the third largest construction OEM in the world, and they brought me in to run the Americas. And when I left Ford, I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I actually went and looked for businesses. And I sat at my kitchen table with my wife, and we had the opportunity to buy a local business or for me to join Terex. And my wife thought security was a job, so I took that. And I started with Terex. I ran the Americas. Bottom line is I traveled down to Memphis, where my corporate headquarters was there, every week. So I was gone. Got promoted to head of global sales and production planning. So now I'm going every week, going to Westport or over to Europe where my production was. And it just got to the point where it was going to get me divorced or disconnected. My wife felt like she was raising our kids on her own as a single parent. And I woke up in a hotel room overseas one night. It was pitch dark and I couldn't remember where I was at. And I decided right there that I was done. I couldn't take it anymore. This is not the life that I wanted to live. So I actually flew home, took my wife out to a little dinner at Rosebud's, a little Italian place. Over a bottle of wine, I proceeded to tell her that I was going to quit my high-paying corporate job. And she's like, well, you're the sole provider, right? And you have to pay the mortgage, and we got to feed and clothe these kids. You can't do that. But I'm one of those people, if I get it in my head, I have to do it. So I left the corporate world, nothing in hand, walked away from $300,000 a year plus job, the whole deal, to go find myself. And I immediately started looking for business again because that's what I wanted. And I found a franchise within a month that I wanted to invest in. And I tracked my wife down and I told her about this great business that she and I are going to invest a good part of our retirement dollars in. When I got done telling her about this great business, she said, no, we're not doing that. Right. And we did not do that business. And I learned a really important lesson that day, that I'd done it to her instead of with. And so I started again looking for businesses, and it took me a little longer. And I finally found a franchise that I wanted to invest in. The franchise concept was called Junk King. It plays in the junk roll space. And I decided that I wanted to buy the rights to 3 states. I wanted to be a master franchisee. So I went through the investigation process. And like you, I included Shannon in the process. So she was on the introduction call. She was on the validation calls. And she actually flew out to the corporate headquarters in the Bay Area to the confirmation day, where we got to meet the leadership team, meet the support staff, and see the operations. She didn't like moving junk part of the day, but so be it. So when it came time to make a decision to invest in the franchise, she didn't want us to own a business. She did not want to be involved in it, but she understood it was important. So she supported the decision, but she wasn't so sure. She had a ton of fear, and because we had a young family, so I had to use what I call the 2-bucket approach. See, she was worried that we wouldn't have enough money to feed and clothe the kids, pay the mortgage, all that kind of stuff. So I created one bucket for the investment in the business. And I created another bucket that was money that she could look at in the bank account that could pay our mortgage, feed the clothes, feed and clothe the kids. And the idea is that to me, it was all one big investment to escape the corporate world. For her, she saw the 2 buckets. So when I showed her the 2 buckets, she goes, okay, I know the kids are going to be fed and clothed. We're not going to get kicked out of our house. Let's do this. But, I'm worried. And I said, you got to trust me. You got to trust that whatever I do, I will be successful. You just have to trust me. So we went forward, and literally we start the business. and I'm working hard. And every day she would walk into my little office and she'd say, "Are we going to succeed?" I'm like, after a while, I'm like, you got to quit asking, right? If you're in racing, you don't look at the wall because you drive into the wall, right? I said, you just got to quit asking the question. Don't worry. We'll burn the bridges, burn the boats. We're not going back. We will be successful, right? So fast forward, we're very successful with the business. And as I'm doing the Junk King, the master franchise, finding franchisees to do junk removal in those 3 states, I get invited to join Franchise, which is kind of the elite franchise consulting network out there. They handpick you, hard to get into from that standpoint. And that's where I really found my passion, right? So from that standpoint, then I really got engaged. And I ultimately sold my master franchise. And now, as we look back, and we are in control of our lives. I mean, we couldn't ask for a better life. I don't have to work for anybody. I got a complete control over my schedule. We are living a full, great life. But now, when we're talking about friends, she'll say, "You know what? I always told Pete he should leave the corporate world. He should go do his own thing." Right? So she takes full credit for it,
It's
whatever,
okay.
right? But from the standpoint, so that's my story, and it's so much fun now. And I wrote the book back in 2015, Hire Yourself, really with this idea as a blueprint to show other people how to do what I did, to escape the corporate world, to take control of their destiny, to build wealth, and that's our job, is to help others explore franchising to see if it's the right path for them.
Great. That's awesome, Pete. I think we're all proud of our stories. Our families are proud of the stories. I just did a podcast earlier this year um, about legacy building. And it was really cool as we've reflected on this. And one thing that I've taken away and I talk about is the shadow we cast is so important. We learn that as managers, leaders of business. But when you get to the family stuff, the shadow you cast and the legacy leave an impression of a legacy to your kids, how you created your own business and how you created your own wealth and how you were there for them in ways that weren't restricted and traveling 50% of your time. Legacy isn't just what you leave to your children or how you create a succession plan. I really think a piece of legacy is having our families and friends reflect on what we've done. And I don't say it from a boastful standpoint. I say, we did okay, call it luck, call it hard work, whatever you want, but it worked out.
A little bit of both, right? But I think, the idea is I look at it with my kids, and I agree with the legacy from the standpoint, but I believe that our kids are growing up in a much different world. They're growing up in a world where they're going to have to create their own opportunities. The day of the traditional jobs are going away. And at some point in time, they're going to have to be entrepreneurs. And when I left the corporate world and started businesses, my kids were young. They were anywhere from 5 to 11 years old. And I wanted this to teach them about being an entrepreneur or exposing them to being entrepreneurs. So what I did is when I launched my business, I literally gave all my kids titles in the business. So I gave my youngest, she was 5 years old. She was the chief fun officer of the business. My second youngest was the chief motivational officer. To this day, she still reaches out to me on a daily basis to ask me if I hit my daily objectives. She's taken it quite seriously. But I went out and got business cards. So my 5-year-old had a business card saying she was the chief fun officer of her business, right? So you fast forward, right? My daughter was in a college program, and she got an internship, and they did a profile video of her, and they asked her, "How did you get into business?" And in this video, she pulls out the business card that I gave her when she was 7 years old and talked about how that touched her. The other thing that I did, in addition to giving them titles, is that every other Sunday, we would have a Sunday dinner and we would talk a little bit about business, just something that was indirect so that I could expose them. For example, how do you, leverage debt or, things like that? How do you do different things with business? Just expose them. And so, again, I think the world is much different. The kids are growing up in a world where it's, they can start a business out of their basement or their garage. It's very simple. It's never been easier to do it. And if we can give them that experience, that's one of the best gifts we can give our kids.
And that's fantastic. That's a really cool story. I didn't know that about you, Pete. And the other thing it's taught me, and I think my kids, is to be grateful.
Yeah.
Really be grateful with what you have. We've created our own destiny, but be grateful of the opportunities that were put before us and be super thankful. And
having a mindset of gratitude is, I talk to all my candidates about this, right? When they launch their business, when you have a mindset of gratitude, it leads to success. If you study gratitude, it leads to success. And I thought this was so important. I actually gave all my kids gratitude affirmations to say on a daily basis. And I gave them gratitude journals to always log what you're grateful for. Because if you have a mindset of gratitude, your life will go in amazing directions.
Awesome. Well, Pete, hopefully others will enjoy this part of our episode, because I think, in the process of giving back, it's all sharing our stories and helping other people doing the same. So again, Pete, how do people get in touch with you?
So again, you go to hireyourself.com, just simply hireyourself.com, schedule a 15-minute call. I can learn a little bit more about what's of interest to you, what's got you interested in exploring franchise, and tell you a little bit about how I can help you explore franchise businesses.
And, Pete and I do the same thing. You can choose. If you want to get in touch with me, Dave Greenberg, go to Empowered Franchisee, and we have the same process. We have a 15-minute call. You can go to that website and book a call. And I think in 15 minutes, we'll figure out whether it makes sense to work together or not. So, Pete, thanks so much for joining in this inaugural episode of our podcast.
Yeah, it's just our mission is to help others. And through our podcast, we're going to help people explore the path we took to become in control of their own destiny, to live life in their own terms, and to build wealth. And now is the time. Don't wait. Take action now to learn more.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for tuning in to the Escape and Empower podcast. We hope today's discussion has inspired you to consider franchise ownership as a path to living life on your own terms. Start your journey towards financial freedom and flexibility. Connect with Dave at empoweredfranchisee.com or Pete at hireyourself.com. Until next time.